Julius Evola has a hilarious quote about like reading his he said, one can reject certain principles a priori, such as the very hypothesis of sacred series and of variations in them determined during various periods by the precession of the equinoxes. But if one does not do so, it is like finding oneself inside an enchanted castle, a vampire's castle. One can refuse to enter, but once the threshold is passed, it is difficult to get out again. One moves from signs to or phonemes, I guess. From phonemes to symbols, from symbols to phonemes and signs, by way of idols, conjurations, calendrical notations, names of gods and demons, ornaments, rites and ritual objects, inscriptions, masks, prehistoric designs on rocks or in caves, funerary ornaments, and finds of every sort, supplemented by specimens gathered in situ during years of research by Worth himself. The author gives us no respite, and even if it was all reduced to a, quote, myth, one still has to recognize the potency and extent of the synthesis behind it. It is hard to find its equal in these fields, monopolized as they are by an arid and pedantic erudition. So I guess, that was his excitement.
Evola did definitely think that Atlantis was real and that Hyperborea and Atlantis were linked. Hyperborea was like the original civilization, and then like the spiritual center of Hyperborea after the Hyperborean cycle ended, transferred to Atlantis. And so that they were, different but sort of related seats of traditional and spiritual learning and advancement. One really good Atlantis idea, or the idea of Atlantis rising, one really good iteration of that was that of the head of the French branch of Amorc, which Sirhan was in, the ancient and mystical order of the Rosicrucians. So its French Grand Master and Supreme Legate, Raymond Bernard, boasted innumerable other titles and dignities, as well as contacts in political circles. So, he was very into Atlantis, and he tells elaborate stories of like his initiation and his contacts, in the Rosicrucian order. But it's very obscure. He said, "This is what the author of Atlantis and the Cycles of Time, what's the name of the author of this book? Because we really should mention her.
It's Atlantis and the Cycles of Time. Let me get it here. By Jocelyn Godwin.
Jocelyn Godwin. Yeah, good job.
Yeah, Jocelyn Godwin.
So,
very good
great
book.
Overview of this subject. Saved us reading through a bunch of tedious stuff.
Yes.
To just get a fuller picture here. But I did read some tedious stuff anyway, but it would definitely save me a lot of it. But anyway, and it provided this tidbit, which is, it says, true to the Rosicrucian myth of unknown superiors who go their way unnoticed by the world but occasionally appear to initiates, Bernard tells us that he met his master in a hotel in Brussels. The sage told him that it was not by chance that there was so much interest in Atlantis today. Then he revealed that some Atlanteans had escaped its destruction and that their heirs still exist. Atlantis was absolutely monotheist, like Islam or Judaism. And held the sun to be the first divine manifestation, not Hawk. All right. Egyptian beliefs were a degenerate remnant of it, adapted to include the Nile in its theology. Atlantis was very civilized, and we have nothing incomparable to its methods of transportation. It had colonies, to which it gave part of its secret wisdom. This is preserved in the Supreme Pyramid, reproduced in different measure by the Pyramid of Cheops and others. Soon its secrets will be discovered, to the great good of humanity, and will put an end to much polemic. Continuing, Bernard's master tells him that the Atlanteans knew nature's forces, especially the telluric currents, and applied them to agriculture. The pyramids served to maintain geological harmony, while the dolmens and menhirs, too, focalized the universal energy. All these sites were attached to the Supreme Pyramid, as only the sages knew how the energy system worked. The Atlanteans used it, as we do electricity, without completely understanding it. But then they abused it and finally made alterations to the Supreme Pyramid with catastrophic results, the deluge. The Atlantean colonies were left to themselves without proper knowledge. Each developed its own school, rites, and myths, and created local secret societies with remnants of their knowledge. Even African secret societies have fragments of this. So did the Druids. So, after the superficial grounding of the Planète school of Atlantology, I guess that's, his theories. Bernard now received the key to the mystery. The master explained to him that after the fall of Atlantis, the world entered a period of obscurity as the sages refused to reconstitute the Atlantean Empire. Instead, the whole world now has become a new Atlantis, even if it takes thousands of years over it. What? All right.
What? Oh my
God. The choice is
God.
offered to usher in an era of extraordinary civilization or to suffer the end not just of a continent but of a world. The time of choice is approaching. To general stupefaction, Atlantis will reappear. The sages have had to leave humanity to grow up by itself as demanded by the universal plan, but they have guided this evolution, gradually giving humanity the discoveries, science, and technology acquired by the Atlanteans.
This is the head of the Rosicrucians.
Secret society, according to... Well, yeah, the head of the Rosicrucians has his own master who's telling him this. A secret master. Like, a Darth Sidious or whatever, like, unnamed, who's, like, telling him that society's development has been guided from behind the scenes by a secret society originating in Atlantis.
The entire
and it will establish... Atlantis will soon remerge... but we must either be destroyed as a world or unite the world under one world Atlantean government.
Oh my God. Wow. So this is the real Mr. Global. This is the real face of Mr. Global.
Yeah, the real Mr. Global. Yes.
Has been an Atlantean all along. I mean, yeah, people will talk about Egyptian mystery schools and Greek and Roman mystery schools, but this would be... Yeah. This would be the source, I guess, of all of that. I mean, it does tie up neatly. But at the same time, is there neatly. Also, I mean, there is something... Okay, if they're just humans, then why were they so much more advanced than everybody else? Or... You know what I mean? Like, what was this... Like, if they were able on this, like, landmass or continent or island or whatever to achieve, like, this very sophisticated level of technology, is it... Does Plato even... I mean, Plato does kind of imply they had more advanced technology than,
well, he says
say,
that they had
Athens.
great temples, and they had... Like, orichalcum they had, which was a, very valuable metal that no longer... was, known, I guess, according to the Platonic dialogue, but it was still less valuable than gold, and it was an impressive civilization, but it seems like Athens at the time was also very impressive. So, and they did get defeated. So then you have to ask yourself, the level of technology definitely grows that people are attributing to Atlantis. It definitely gets more and more intense. Like, in Donnelly, for instance, like, some of the people will say, like, they were advanced, but it was still the Stone Age or whatever. But Donnelly will be like, they were just a little bit less advanced than us. And then, like, people eventually are saying that they were more advanced than even, like, technologically.
Yeah, they could use pyramids as, like, energy vectors and things like that. Like, they had tapped into some kind of, paraphysical phenomena that... which is like an intriguing concept that, the course of technological development maybe could spin off into like this different direction. But I also, it begs the question both then and today, like why were kind of like they the only ones? Because that thing you just read me from like the Rosicrucians definitely is hyping them up as like almost gods. Like they are basically like the managers
and they had
of
all technology that we have now. They've released all this technology that they've always known about.
It's like it's like secret space program shit, except like been happening for 12,000 years or something, or 10,000 years. It's like okay, no, I don't quite buy that. But also, it's like, why should we trust you, Atlanteans, if you have been around for so long? What made you better than anybody else? Even if you didn't destroy yourselves per se, what made them so advanced that then, I don't know, they were wiped out without a trace? Or, I mean, is it really true? Are we to believe that there was a utopia and then a random natural disaster wiped it off the face of the earth, and the last 10,000 years have been like a secret society of people who, according to
the Rosicrucians, yes. Steiner, actually, as I mentioned, he had like a lot of interesting takes on, Rudolf Steiner of Waldorf School fame. He had a lot of interesting takes on Atlantis because, he had kind of his own version of the root race or like epochal ideas of the Theosophists, who he eventually broke with his own anthroposophy. So he also believed that there was some kind of stuff going on with the moon, and there used to be no material separation between the Earth, Sun, and Moon. And during the Polarian epoch, the sun was extruded from the Earth, taking with it more subtle elements. And during the Hyperborean epoch, the moon was extruded, taking the coarsest elements. And human beings were present throughout the whole process, therefore, man consciousness changing along with the cosmic process. So over time, like the Earth and the Moon and the Sun have been like split apart. And yeah, according to Steiner, human beings evolved, or proto-humans at least, evolved on Saturn, the Sun, and the Moon. And there will even be further developments on Jupiter, Venus, and Vulcan in the future. But yeah, according to him, there was like a Lemurian period and an Atlantean period. And the Lemurians, they had an intuitive understanding of natural forces, and they could control the weather and the growth of plants and even the evolution of animal into human form just by applying the will. That's pretty impressive, you know.
But they could turn animals into humans with their minds?
Schools. Yeah, your preschool, your kids' preschool teachers were sitting them down and being like, now kids, like the Lemurians, had, you know, they had the power to remodel the hills and to build cities in stone with only their minds. The Lemurian body was formed of cartilages only, like gradually. First it was just like spiritual maybe, but then it had cartilages. And then in the Atlantean period, that's when finally people had skeletons.
Blavatsky had a similar kind of idea with like the root races, right? That they were just like ethereal at first, and
earlier
then they acquired bodies.
Exactly. They were like kind of very ethereal beings that didn't even necessarily have personalities per se, and were just kind of like these very ethereal spirit beings that became more and more material over time. So this is very similar because, you know, obviously it's very influenced by theosophy, but so they finally got a skeleton in the Atlantean period, but an Atlantean still was very psychically powerful. Like an early Atlantean could break an iron rail or stop a cannonball through psychic force alone. So
so we're talking about like the Fury, like, you know, psychic super soldiers.
Yes, right. So I guess, Atlanteans were developed from the elite of the Lemurians, and they were saved from the cataclysms of destroyed Lemuria, which was the southern continent. And at first, they passed much of their lives in the spiritual world with spiritual beings for companions.
So they're hanging out with jinns?
And they would spend the night with the jinns, and they would return to their bodies at daybreak, like snails, into their shells. That's the, godwoods.
Oh, so they're like remote viewing. They're hanging out in the astral plane with jinns, like remote viewing.
Yes, they're astral a lot of the time. Yes. Yes. And also, the Atlanteans had airships that were powered by harnessing the energy and growing things. And the energy
of what?
Growing things. So they had a bunch of seeds, and then they had these sort of contraptions that would extract like the built up energy from the seeds. And then the airships, you know, they could only float a short distance, and they wouldn't work at all like nowadays because the air used to be thicker. Yeah, so that's what your kids will learn at the Waldorf school.
Okay.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
So I guess like the powers of the gnomes kind of were the powers that allowed the airships to fly, ironically, because like, you know, the powers of the earth were harnessed, like the potential energy. I don't know. He might be upset at me about implying that. He'd be like, gnomes have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I know.
Seems like they're related.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't want to step on the doctrines there.
For access to the full-length episode, subscribe to the Hour of Frequency at patreon.com/subliminaljihad.